Recording.
Hi guys. All right, we are going to kick off. I am going to introduce Coach Ben, and he will get us started. But as with every Team for Kids virtual, anything we do, if you have any questions at the end, please give us an email at teamforkids@nyr.org. That includes any coach questions you may have that pop up during the season. We will get them over to Ben. Ben will get them to a coach. We will get your questions answered. So again, teamforkids@nyr.org. And with that, I hand it on over to Ben.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. Rose is she's multitasking. She's eating. I'm very curious what's having for dinner now. I haven't had dinner yet, so I'm jealous, Rose. Hope it's good. Ready to come off mute or show yourself, please. I don't want to call anybody out, but thank you so much for being here. And yes, remember that lovely email address, teamforkids@nyrr.org. But thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited. The United Airlines NYC half is my favorite race that New York Roadrunners does, hands down. I love everything about this race, so I love talking about this race. I love to share information, tips, and tricks to help you be successful, whether it's your first marathon or half marathon, excuse me. If you've done this before, maybe first time doing this particular one, or if you're a veteran and just looking to try to improve yourself as best you can, make yourself 1% better, maybe than where you were last year, because that's all you have to worry about today. But it's all good stuff. And here's our agenda for today. We're going to go over some general training. I think the winter attire topic is quite appropriate, considering it's like 8 degrees outside here in New York City. Fueling and hydration, as always, are good questions. I was just talking today about asking someone like, do I have to stay hydrated in the wintertime? The answer is yes. Just because we're not sweating as much as we are in the lovely steamy days of July and August, we are still sweating. We do need to make sure we're hydrated. We'll go into all of that. And then, as Ashley said, we definitely want to hear from you. We have coaches on the call that have different ways to approach things, different ideas. So your Q&A is welcome. You can type it in, or at the end we'll have it open. You come off mute and give us some ask some questions. But again, any question you may have after the fact, always take in mind that teamforkids@nyrr.org. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce our wonderful table of coaches that are here today. Take it from the top. Natalie, come on off and say hi.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the technical training kickoff. It was really great to see some of you at practice on Saturday, and I hope so far everyone's training is going well, and here's a way to get it on track and keep it on track. And I look forward to meeting more of you as the season goes on.
Awesome. Ro, what you got for us?
Hello, everyone. Just, reiterating everybody that came out on Saturday. It was great to meet you. It's nice to see everybody posting and showing us their photos. Let's keep that going. Today is going to be great. You're going to learn a lot, and these questions are going to keep coming up over the next 9 weeks, and we're here to, help you through them.
Awesome. Glenn, where are you? So glad you're here with us today, Glenn. How you doing?
Okay, good evening, everyone. My name's Glenn Wiener. Just hello, this is coming into my 18th year with Team for Kids. Wow. I would normally say I don't feel that old, but those who know what's going on, oh, yes, I do. I'm getting a laugh from that.
OG Glenn.
Yeah. I just want to say, I think it's fantastic that you all are joining us today, because I think the most important thing for you to do now as a runner is to take in as much information as you can, but at the same thing, don't follow one person's advice. Find what works for you. So by hearing what I might say, what Ro might say, what Ben, you have different options, and then you find what works for you. And that's the best advice you can get, is what works for you. That's it.
100% true, Glenn. Yeah, again, running is not a one-size-fits-all thing. And definitely you'll hear tonight from a lot of different ways and processes to get what was going to work best for you. And there's a lot of trial and error. You're going to figure those things out. And then I think, Rosie, you're joining us tonight as a coach. Rosie, come on up and say hi.
Okay, Rosie, your name is not on this
That's
wonderful
okay.
slide. But Rosie knows how much I appreciate her as a person and a coach and as a human being. So, Rosie.
Hello, everyone. And that's everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, everyone. Welcome, runners. It was nice to meet some of you on Saturday. And if you have not come, please make it a date for next Saturday or any Saturday for that matter. You can come as often as you want. Maybe even if you're just visiting New York City, you're always welcome. Don't be afraid if you are a first-time half marathoner, if you are a first-time runner. We have every kind of pace, and everyone is welcome.
100% true. If anybody was on the call, was actually at practice, maybe put a thing in the chat, say I was at practice. Love to see who was there because we had a great practice this past weekend. Love to see all the new faces come out as everyone begins to kick off 2024, wherever your running journey may be. If you haven't come out yet, like Rosie said, please come join us on a cold Saturday morning. You never know what we have, but yeah, the most important part is making those plans for after the workout, whether that includes coffee or a hot beverage, your food of choice, or just simply going home and getting into dry, warm clothes. That works too. But we'll go ahead and get started with our first topic, which I think is going to be general training. I was going to pass the microphone around and ask some questions here, so all of our coaches can kind of give you some tips and tricks as we go. And again, if this is your first half marathon, if this is your first half, don't be shy. Let us know. Spoiler alert, it's going to be your fastest. No matter what you finish across the finish line in, you're going to run your fastest half marathon come St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. But everyone's always kind of running, wondering, how do I start my training? How do I get ready for March? 10 weeks may seem like a long way away, but it can go quick. Glenn, I'll kick it off with you, Glenn. You said it's your 18th year, so you probably have a lot of experience on the topic. The questions you have. If this is someone's first, what are some of the things when they start to get training and getting ready for their first half? What should they be focusing on? What should really be some of the keys they should step into?
So the important stuff to start with is to assess where you are. If you're coming off the couch, realize that and adjust your workouts accordingly. If you miss a few days, the same thing. If you build up too quick, you'll never make it to the starting line or the finish line. So the goal is to get to the starting line, and then if you follow our workouts from that point, you'll get to the finish line. So I think the biggest mistakes that we see people doing is doing more than they are ready for at a particular point in time in training, and also doing your runs too fast. The easy runs. Obviously, you'll see in the workouts there's time to go faster, but one of the biggest mistakes also that people make is those easy days going out and pushing themselves, doing faster than even your goal race pace. And in that sense, you're racing when you should be training on those certain days.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I can't emphasize that. Make your hard days hard, your easy days easy. It's so important to know how important recovery is going to be in your training cycle, because there is a workload, and especially if it's your first go around, you're asking your body to maybe do something that you haven't done before. And so the body's going to want to have some serious conversations about that as you make your way through. But Ro, what happens? Again, training is a puzzle. It's not going to be a perfect fit every single time. And I mean, a lot of people here have work life, whether it be you have work, you have kids, you have family, whatever the case may be. If things don't go, if I have to miss or skip, Ro, what am I looking at doing as a first-time half marathoner? Should I be freaked out? Is one missed workout going to ruin my whole training and my race, Ro?
Yeah, absolutely not. We all have to remember, even, the fastest, most serious runners have life. And there are going to be days where you're looking at that, run calendar and go, I just, I don't know how to do this. And it's okay if you have to skip, a day, or maybe if it's a long run, maybe you have to split it because you just don't have that time, in the morning, because you got to get, kids to their soccer practice, and that's okay. First thing, don't beat yourself up. Life happens. Second, it's okay if you have to skip or move some stuff around, or maybe take an easy run day and just go to the gym and, spend 30 minutes on, a bike or a treadmill. And that's okay. So, first and foremost, don't freak out. Life happens. And if you're using Run Coach and you need to adjust, let them know, because they, that also is a great tool, and it's adjusting to what you're actually doing. So if you contact them and say like, hey, 4 days this week, I can't do, my Wednesday easy run. They'll help you adjust, your calendar and your mileage too.
Anyone who lives in the New York City area today, if you'd had a speed workout kind of slotted in, would probably been a good day either to go inside for that on the treadmill. Take it very easy if you found a safe place to run, or simply skip it. Because as Glenn alluded to earlier, you want to get to the start line healthy. If you can't do that, then no amount of work or training you're going to do is going to be beneficial because you're injured. And injury free is such a key. And the importance of, like, our next question is cross training and strength workout. Hey, Natalie, got to toss this one out towards to you. I mean, people love to do it. I talked to some runners this past week about where they should incorporate strength training or cross training into their training philosophy, or where they have. Should runners simply stop that? Maybe, again, you may look at it from a first-time perspective, or someone maybe who's done a half marathon before and wants to incorporate more. But Natalie, if I'm a runner, how should I look at my cross training, my strength workouts within the bigger part of my training plan? Should I stop them? What should I do? And what's some advice out there that you can offer?
I would say that you don't stop your strength workouts, because strength, strong core, strong arm muscles, strong, like a stronger body is going to make a better body for running. However, I would temper that by reminding you that you still just have one body that's doing all this training, right? So it's one body that's going to run or lift weights or do yoga or do a HIIT class. So if it's a sort of thing where you're used to doing like 4 cross training classes, and all of a sudden you're adding in running, I'd say pull back a little bit on that cross training. And you have to remember to keep the easy days easy, because your body needs repair and rest, right? So you can't say, well, I didn't run today, but I went to the gym and I did legs for 2 hours. It's not going to help your muscles repair. So that's why we say scale back or adjust. Maybe you do, if you did a long run, maybe it's not a leg day, maybe you're doing arms or something else, but scale it back, because your body still needs to recover from the stresses that you put it under.
That's so true, Natalie. People think, oh, I'm just going to go to the gym and lift weights for a little while. What's the big deal? But I think to your point, you hit it the nail right on the head, is that it can still be a quality workout and still a hard workout, and then you're not getting that recovery. And then also you go out and run the next day and you're like, well, how do I have no energy? It's because that recovery hasn't taken place. So that's great information, Natalie. Okay, Rosie, coming at you. I don't know. I love our NYC half course. I like the rolling nature of it. It gives you some variation. You do get to cross the Manhattan Bridge as you come over from Brooklyn into Manhattan. So how important are hills going to be as we look maybe just at the United Airlines NYC half? But in general in training, how important are hills, and why should runners not avoid them and maybe embrace that love on the hill?
Yes, and hills are speed in disguise. So it's very important to incorporate the hills, because even though we have a net downhill going down to the beginning of the Manhattan Bridge, then there is the big incline on the Manhattan Bridge. The FDR Drive is not flat. If you have driven over the FDR Drive, you will see that it's rolling hills. And then there is also another hill on 42nd Street. And finally, the ramp going into the park on 59th Street, 60th Street. So it is important to do hill repeats or find a non-undulating course. Remember that going up the hills, you want to maintain your RPE, rate of perceived absorption. So not your pace. Going uphill, you will automatically lose a little bit of speed, because you're keeping your effort, your heartbeat, your breathing constant. In other words, avoid attacking the hills and burning through your glycogen stores right away. Go up conservative and maintain your speed once you crest the hill, and whatever, in quotes, speed you have lost going up, you will make up for it going down the hill, because you have gravity pull you down. So do not lean backward when you're going downhill. Don't brake with your quads. just let gravity naturally pull you down.
I'm husking down, and gravity is your friend. That's so true, Rosie. I mean, why fight it? I mean, you're going up the hill if you're moving too hard. I mean, like Rosie was saying, if you use an effort-based scale instead of trying to maintain, like, if a 9:09 pace, if you're going for 2 hours, if you bring that down to like 9:15 or 9:20, all of a sudden you crest the top of the hill or the bridge. All of a sudden you're running down. You're doing 8:45 or 8:50. It's going to balance itself out. So learning how to run that and really being smart. And we see the arms. Natalie mentioned your arms. Rosie, you mentioned the arms. Don't forget these. These are so important to keeping us going. And no spoilers, but I think anyone who's run this course before knows the last 5K of this race, it will challenge you. So if you run the first half well and don't burn out the energy too much, you'll have the kick for home because there is that hill coming off the FDR as you make your way into Times Square. But don't want to give anything away. No spoilers here, folks. But it is a fantastic course. Glenn, you touched on it when we were going over your training. What does recovery and easy day mean, and why is recovery? I like to say, why do we celebrate recovery, but why, especially some of our first-time marathoners who think if I take a day off, I'm going to lose fitness. But why is it important for those recovery and those easy days?
Yeah. Ben, you said the exact thing. Why is it important? Well, people tend to think the long run, they're prescribed, I got to do it. But when you put down in the plan recovery, that becomes optional. That is as important part of the training plan as that long run. Some of you may become coaches down the road, and one of the first things you're going to learn is the principle of stress, recovery, adaptation. That's the cycle. So now if some of you went to a gym when you were younger, or you are young and you go and you work out. If I work my biceps today, what do you do the next day when you go to the gym? You don't do your biceps again. You might do your legs because you don't stress the same part of your body twice in a row if you want to see gains. So what happens is after you stress the body on a hard day, and then you have an easy day, those adaptations that we're looking for, that are going to make you fitter, that's going to give you, getting a little more scientific, more capillaries and more mitochondria, which get you through the race. Those only come after the rest days when you've allowed your body to adapt. A good visual on that is if you get a scab and we just keep rubbing it, it's never going to get to that scar tissue, but we want that because that's what's stronger. So if we keep stressing, like scratching that area, and you don't let it heal, you're not going to get stronger. So think of that. The rest is when we're going to get in that visual, that scar tissue, but it's going to be other adaptations which are going to make you stronger.
Just gonna put it out there. My favorite days are my rest days. Why? Because I get to sit on my couch. I get to hang out, get to relax. I know people out there that hear about running streaks and I got to run every day for a year and I got to do all this. My current running streak is 2 days. I took Monday off, so I'm only ran the last 2 days. I'll run tomorrow, then I'll take Friday off. Why? Because it's so important that I don't have to, be out there every single day doing what I want to do to take recovery. As Glenn was saying, it's so important to understand the adaptations and the gains that you will make in those moments. So keep that in mind, runners, because again, you want to get to the starting line healthy. I think next up on our next agenda is going to be a very appropriate topic today: winter attire. Not enough sweaters in my closet. What? We're pausing.
My computer was glitching. But I'd like to also point out that this, I think, is one of Ben's favorite days. In this beautiful picture of him running the United Airlines NYC half. Just thought I'd be remiss in not doing that.
I get to pace the race every year, and it is the best experience. I paced at 155 this year. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun to be out there and hang out with everybody. But talk about winter gear. I don't know about you. I don't have enough sweaters in my closet right now or gloves to keep myself warm. Ro, let's talk about how to dress in the cold. You're pretty well versed in it. I think on Saturday after a run, you had half your closet at the run center to make sure you were warm going home.
I absolutely love running in the cold because of layers. And Ben is so right. On Saturday, you would have thought, and it was warm out, and there were layers coming out of my bag because that is, to me, the best part of winter running. You get a nice base layer, see, like a little shirt underneath. It's a nice long sleeve, and then you put another layer over, and then you have that nice quilted coach's pullover. But the reason why I love running like that is because when I'm in the corral and I'm, standing around and just sort of hopping around, it's a little cold. It helps. And then as I start running and you start warming up, and you are going to warm up, even though it could be really cold out, you can take a layer off, tie it around your waist, just like Sam here in our visual has everything tied around her waist. There are so many cool things you can do. There's hats, or you can just use something for your ears. So maybe you can still get the heat coming out of your head. Some people like gloves. I'm the person that puts the gloves on, starts running, puts them off, puts them in their pockets. And then I'm sure other coaches will talk about it, but merino wool, it's your friend. It's moisture wicking. It keeps the sweat off of you. So you can maintain, your body heat, but at the same time, it's keeping you warm. And that's also why you want to do the layers, get that sweat off of you, and just, be able to really understand that you are going to heat up. And the other most important thing, cotton is rotten. You don't want to run in cotton next to your skin, because that will soak up that sweat and then stick it right back on you, and you'll be super cold. And I think right now that's the best thing I could tell you about running in the cold.
Yeah, and a lot of it's practice. You're gonna have to figure out what works for you. Each one of our bodies is going to be affected or impacted by the elements around us. Some people, your hands get very cold, your neck gets very cold. I need more on my chest, or less on my chest, or more on top of my head. So as you begin to head out for your training runs, this is part of what you're going to be taking notes on, figure out what's going to work for you. So go out there. Okay, I had a moisture wicking long sleeve shirt, then I put a short sleeve on, and then I had a jacket. After 2 or 3 miles, I warmed up. I had to unzip my jacket. After a while, like Sam, I tied it around my waist. So do I need that the whole time, or can I just start with a long sleeve and a short sleeve, depending on what the temperature is? So take notes on what's working, because this is going to be the key when you get to race day. You've figured those things out. You've kind of determined what you want to wear and why you want to be in those clothes, because they feel right, and you know how you should perform in those. So, Hadley, we talked about what's on the outside. Now, underneath on our undergarments, these are kind of things, the under layers. You could add layers underneath, whether we call them undergarments or whatnot. But when I look at like undergarments, from different perspectives, what should I be looking for? Why are they important? And any maybe do's or don'ts that can help our runners out.
Well, to go on what Rose said, definitely nothing cotton that's there with these undergarments. Wicking. Something that is moisture wicking, that's going to pull the sweat away from you, that's listed as a dry, some sort of dry top or wicking. I had at Joe Kleineman a few weeks ago, I was slightly overdressed and didn't realize it, because a jacket that used to allow for wicking no longer does. I guess it's too, I don't know why. But then you wind up cold and wet when you're outside. And as soon as you stop, you're going to start to freeze and your muscles will start to spasm, and you don't want that. So a dry underlayer, even if your outer winds up too warm, as long as you have something drying next to your skin or something to change into immediately when you're done with your run, can make a world of difference.
And being comfortable during the run is so key, especially in these conditions when it gets cold. Because once that chill sets into your bones, it's hard. I mean, especially if it's really cold out there, you're not going to get warm. It can be very uncomfortable, and obviously you have other areas of concern that you want to watch out for. Okay, Rosie, shoes. I don't know about you. I love shoes. I love to run in different kinds of shoes. There's all kinds of shoes out there. People see everything, 4%, 2%, 8%, I don't know, 4.3%. Do we have like a 3.14%? Is there a pie shoe? I don't know what the heck's out there in the market today. But let's talk about shoes. What's important, what we should look for, and how I should go about getting the right shoe for me or for any of our runners out there.
Okay, so what I would suggest is that if you have not visited a running store, like for example, the New Balance, you do so, they can do a foot analysis and determine what kind of striker you are. Are you a neutral runner? Are you a pronator, underpronator, supinator? And there are shoes that address the various form of your gait, let's say, of your foot, the way you land. That said, many running stores also offer, and I believe New Balance does it too, but I need you to vouch for that, that when you purchase a pair of shoes and you keep your receipt, if you see that that particular shoe doesn't work for you, you can return it within 30 days. They will not refund the money, but they will swap it for another kind of shoe, or maybe a different size or a different width. Remember that running shoes should always be half a size to a full size bigger than your regular shoe size. It really depends on the model of the shoe, on the manufacturer, and sometimes on the version of the same model of the same shoe. There are shoes that have a very high stack. That means that are super cushioned. There are shoes that have less cushioning, therefore you feel that you are more in touch with the ground. There are shoes that are called the so-called super shoes with carbon plates. So I advise you to have at least 2 pairs of shoes, and you can rotate them and see which ones you feel better, and you pay attention to any aches and pains. If you currently already have running shoes, monitor the life of your running shoes. On average, a running shoe lasts from 300 to 500 miles, depends on how you rotate them. When the shoes stay overnight, the cushioning that has been compressed during the run tends to bounce back. Carbon plate shoes last much less than that, so they need to be replaced every 200-300 miles the most.
This helps because color makes us run faster, right?
I couldn't hear. What did you say? I missed the first part.
I mean, having a cool color for our shoe is always important too, because the colors make us run faster, right?
Absolutely. Bright
Yes.
bright colors make you run
Yes.
way faster.
And it's always true, right? It's always, you go to the running store, and again, that's why the running shoes are out there. They want to have the cool color. But again, like Rosie said, you need to make sure you get the shoe that fits you best. I mean, I call our feet our tires. Those are our tires. If you can't keep your tires on the road, no matter what else we talk about here, it's not going to help you out. You want to keep your feet in good shape. Talk to the experts that are out there, and it's important to try some stuff. Obviously check about a return or a refund policy when you're there, just to make sure that if you try something, it doesn't quite fit or it doesn't quite work the way you want it to, or you ran them and there was some doesn't quite do it, you're able to go back and try something else without having to shell out some more money, because running shoes are not cheap. And again, you want to make sure you're getting the best for you. Glenn, so we talked about all these. Glenn, go ahead.
I just have a question for Rosie. So Rosie, with these wet conditions, what should or shouldn't I do when I come back with sopping wet running shoes?
Well, first of all, do not throw them in a dryer. Take your insole off, and you can stuff them with newspapers, or if you don't find newspapers anymore, maybe flyers from your supermarket nearby with the ads, whatever you can find, and just let them naturally dry. Do not put them in the dryer, please.
My radiator at home sometimes. I'll shove them under the radiator. That kind of helps as well. But yeah, it's a bummer if you don't get the actual paper edition of like our newsprint anymore. I used to save those for literally a rainy day, and this was one of them. But Glenn, we talked about all these things. We talked about what we're dressing in, how we want to dress, the undergarments, our shoes. What are some common mistakes or missteps that new runners may find themselves in, even after hearing all this stuff and they're not really sure, taking in so much info? What are some mistakes they may want to watch out for or be mindful of?
Well, I think one of the more common ones that we see is going to running shoes and not going with what feels good for you, but what you're being told by somebody, either in a store or a friend, that you should be using. No, what you should be using or wearing is what feels good for you. So what, whether it be shorts or shoes or any, the biggest mistake would be trying to copy someone and think that that's the perfect outfit, including shoes for you. What's perfect for you is what feels good for you. And on that point, what's really important that kind of was alluded to by Rosie, specifically with shoes, these manufacturers are known to sometimes discontinue a shoe in the middle, and all of a sudden comes race day and your other shoes are shot, dead, and you go, what do I do? You can't get, so we always suggest that you buy 2 pairs of the shoes you like, run a few times in one to just break them in and put them aside for race day. So a lot of times people don't have those extra pairs for them come race day or down the road, and they regret it. So when you find a shoe you like, buy even more than 2 or 3 of them and just hold them. If you keep them years, the rubber will dry out. But absent that, most people go through a few pairs in a year, they'll be good. So those are some of the common mistakes that I think people make is trying to mimic someone. The same as in training, is you find what works for you and stick to it. You'll find whether you overdress or underdress. Personally, like me, I go in shorts most of the winter, but I'll wear more layers than, say, Natalie on the top, because she may not need it or want as much on. So everyone's individualistic. Find what works for you.
And that's key. Everything we talk about here, that's really the big takeaway, runners, is that you have to find what works for you. We're giving you a lot of information here. And if you're watching this on the record, you hear a lot of different things. There is a lot of trial and error, and that's fine. That's part of what the journey is. And what works today may have changed in 6 months, may change in a year. So it's always an evolving process because our bodies are changing on who we are. We're aging. Heaven forbid we age. I mean, I'm trying to stop buying every day. I mean, it's not working for me very well. But again, keep that in mind and enjoy that journey. And it's always good to have notes. People say keep a running log. It's kind of old school, but it can be very advantageous. If you do have to change something up or you have to go back and check on some things. And I think our next section kind of leads in great in your fueling and your hydration.
But Ben, before we get into our next section, we did
What's
have
up?
one relevant question from Michelle about running belts.
It's a good
I actually see
lead-in.
that Rosie is typing an answer. So Rosie, feel free to get on the horn and let Michelle know.
Yes. Okay, hold on. Hi, Michelle. Good question. Okay, so first of all, you need to determine what kind of running belt you are looking at. A running belt only for fuel, or a running belt also for hydration. There are different kinds of running belts on the market. Some are made of stretch material, similar to tights. They have to sit right at the waist so that they don't bounce up and down in order to avoid any chafing. Other running belts have slots to put 2 to 4 small bottles, others only 1 bottle that sits on the back. So it's really a preference of how much of your own fuel, nutrition, and hydration you need on the course and on the length of the race. Specifically for the half marathon, we will have, I think, on the course a Gatorade endurance formula, which you could also order on Amazon and try. It's a powder that's mixed with water at each water station, so the concentration might be slightly different from water station to water station. Usually it's a citrus flavor, kind of a yellowish color. And then we will have some kind of gels also around the course. I'm not sure which brand this year will be on the course. Do you know?
It will be Science and Sport. We'll be back again this year.
Science and Sport,
yeah.
yes. So they are usually more fluid than other gels. The package is a little bigger. They are a little easier to digest than other gels that are a little bit thicker. So if you are thinking about bringing your own running belt, first you need to determine whether you want to carry only gels or any other kind of your own nutrition, whether you're carrying, I don't know, fruit pouches, for example, or dates, or pretzels, or mashed bananas, I don't know. Or if you need to bring also hydration because maybe you cannot drink the Gatorade on the course that gives you GI distress.
There's one question from Mindy in the open, real quick, Glenn, go ahead.
No, I don't want to add, I'm going to ask or have someone discuss, there was mentioned chafing. And when we were talking about garments, I think that would be just a good, you know, a good point for one of the other coaches to just briefly address.
Right?
Are you on
Thank
me?
you for
about
fun.
chafing.
Okay, so I'll
General?
briefly,
Go for it, Ro.
oh, well,
Yeah, I was like, you know, there are different things like, I mean, Vaseline, cheap, useful. Basically, we use a phrase, if you like it, lube it. So,
This is a PG
And-
show here, Ro. Come on now.
Listen, chafing can happen in cold and hot weather. You know, it's basically, you know, sweat, wetness, something, you know, rubbing. And even though it's moisture wicking, you know, we're doing this, and like a lot of ladies will know, we'll get a little bit of a chafe from our run bras sometimes. So stuff Aquaphor, Vaseline, lanolin, you can put that as a nice like base layer between you and actually your clothing. Same thing, like if it's raining, I like to put Vaseline on my toes before I put my socks on, because sometimes those socks, you can, you know, you're running 13 miles, there's puddles, they start soaking up that water, and then all of a sudden you're chafing again. It actually happened to me on Saturday. So, and I didn't put any Vaseline or Aquaphor on it. I had it on my face for wind and all that good stuff, but not on my feet. My feet got soaked and I wound up getting a blister, which I then popped in front of all the other coaches while they were sitting there. But
That's what coaches do.
yeah, it was gross. But you know, like, so those are just like, you know, easy things to do. But you know, even in the winter, you're gonna sweat. There can be chafing. So there, look, Natalie, yeah, body glides, Vaseline, all this good stuff. There's something for everybody in all different price ranges.
Yeah,
There
we
was
have a lot
also
of good.
a question in
Yeah, we
the
have a lot of questions
chat
coming in. Yeah, we
as
have a lot
well.
of
There was a
questions coming
question in
in.
the chat about sneakers.
Sorry,
So-
Ro,
Yeah, we have a
just
lot-
to interrupt before we have any more questions. Please feel free to put the questions that you have in the Q&A section, not just in the chat. That way all the coaches can answer it. We can keep it in one place. Thanks, guys. All right, Ro, feel free to answer that one.
Yeah, so the question was, should I use my race day sneakers for your speed workouts? And then this is also like when it comes down to, you know, multiple pairs, etc. I have daily trainers, which is something they'll use for, I have, you know, for speed workouts and easy workouts. I actually have shoes specifically for speed, so they're lighter. My long run shoe is just for that. I use it for my long runs because I always want to mimic what I'm doing on race day as my long runs, because that's my dress rehearsal and it's your dress rehearsal. So personally, I would say you probably want something that's a little bit more geared to a daily trainer and or a speed shoe rather than using your, you know, long run shoe. And as Glenn and Ben were saying, if you have multiple pairs, like I have so many ridiculously pairs of shoes. I have 2 long run shoes, 2 daily trainers, a speed shoe, a trail shoe. But I have those two long run shoes. I'll switch back and forth, but once I decide I'm gonna wear, my pink ones, then I'll put them to the side, whatever, I'll put them to the side because now I want to save them, but I have another long run shoe. So yeah, I would not wear my long run shoes as a speed shoe personally.
My pumps, my high heels, my sandals as well with all of that. I got to keep the important things here, folks. You have different kinds of shoes for different ways of life. You will never know what you may need. There was a question I'm going to do real quick, and then we're going to jump over to our nutrition because we have some really good information that we want to share. We have a lot of questions, so thank you so much. Someone asked about a handheld water bottle carry on course. 100% yes. And then they mentioned, are vests prohibited? I want to kind of put it out there as I'm trying to clarify some of the information on the vest. As this was changed last year for our marathon and all of our races moving forward. Prior to this year's marathon, anything over the shoulder was out. You could not wear any kind of hydration vest or hydration. Anything over the shoulder was a no-no. They have worked with NYPPD and the powers that be here in New York. And what we are now allowing is anything over the shoulder, all of the water or whatever you're carrying must be in the front. It can't be in the back. So any hydration backpacks, like your Camel packs, the Nathan, anything in the back with the water tubes, you still can't use those. But if you use a hydration vest with the water bottles in the front, those are good to go. All the information is on the website, but I know a lot of people, myself included, I like to train with the backpacks as opposed to a waist belt or a handheld. I like to have my hands free, not anything jiggling around my waist. So I make sure that if I have those, all my nutrition, all my stuff's in the front. You can't have anything, any water in the back at all. That is a no-no still, but want to kind of touch on that. But we're going to kick it over to some fueling and hydration. We've already been talking about fueling and hydration a lot here. I think Rosie may have to bounce out here pretty quick. So I'm going to toss this first one to you, Rosie. Again, it's all going to be very personal. Anything when it comes down to nutrition that we have, anything you eat, whether before, during, or after the run, it's somewhat the taste and what we like, and also what our lifestyle is. If you're, you don't eat meat, if you're vegan, if you're vegetarian, those are things you need to be, to be thoughtful of. But what would you recommend, and maybe what do you do eat before a run, and how soon before you go out for your run, Rosie?
Okay, so it's important that you have a good breakfast 2 to 3 hours prior to your race so that you have enough time to digest it. And then you can have a second breakfast, but much, much smaller than that. Let's say maybe half banana or a gel before you start the race, like half an hour or so. As a good breakfast, I mean some carbs, mainly carbs with a little bit of proteins. So for some people, it could be oatmeal and half a banana, or a bagel with some kind of a nut butter, and then maybe also half a banana again. For other people, can be a smoothie. Some people have coffee. For other people, coffee doesn't work because it can cause GI distress. Remember to hydrate in the morning when we wake up. Right away, a nice glass of water. If you want some electrolytes also. And then during the course of the race, take advantage of the water stations, get some Gatorade, as Coach Ben mentioned earlier. Even though it's not July or August where runners sweat a lot, you are still sweating, even if it's cold, and you are still losing liquids. So it's very important that you replenish the liquids. Additionally, we have enough glycogen stored in our muscles for about 90 minutes, an hour and a half of exercise, give or take, depending on how efficiently your body consumes glycogen. Glycogen is stored in the liver, and it's basically what makes your muscles go, your legs go. So you need to top off the tank. You cannot wait until when your tank is empty to put something in there, because that's not the way it works. You're not going to be able to replenish. Many runners prefer gels because they are easier to carry and can be taken every 45 minutes. you should experiment what kind of gel works or doesn't work for you. There are several on the market. Some are more natural. Some are based only with honey or maple syrup. Others have more chemicals in it. Other runners prefer to take in natural foods. As I was saying, for example, dates coated in Himalayan salt or fruit pouches. Basically, it's a trial and error that you have to experiment now during your long runs to see what works and doesn't work for you in order to avoid trips to the porta potties.
And trips to the porta potties during the race maybe aren't the best call, but hey, you know what? When nature calls, you can only put it on hold for so long, folks. But hopefully that won't happen to you on race day. Take care of business before the race if you can. Natalie, Rosie touched on it a little bit. When runners are looking at their long runs as they get ready for race day, I like to look at my long run as kind of a dress rehearsal. But there's so much to look at. I mean, how do I start? I mean, if I go to a specialty store and I see all these different gel types, I see different things, some with caffeine, some without, some natural, some not. How am I supposed to start? And more importantly, Natalie, how am I supposed to, use this to help me out on my long runs?
So a gel is only as effective as its use, right? So you're going to start by picking something that's a flavor that you're going to want to have throughout the course of your race. You're not going to pick, like, if you can't stand orange, don't pick orange flavored gel. You're not going to want to take it, right? So decide whether you want a gel or whether you want a bar. Start by picking a flavor that you like. Next, go to consistency. It's like, I know I was really overwhelmed because I used to think I would never run a distance where I needed food to eat because that was crazy. So now all of a sudden I have to find food to eat while I'm running. So again, go to the flavor that you're going to like, go to a consistency that you're going to use, and then just start experimenting as you go out on the runs, right? Rosie touched on it, right? Our bodies can store a certain amount, but you don't want to deplete the tank before you fill it again. You need to top it off. So the science seems to say maybe every 35 to 40 minutes you're fueling. Some people think, oh, every 5K. However, if you're going by distance, if you're having a faster day or a slower day, you're not going to wind up taking in the same amount of fuel. That's why it's better to go by time in terms of how you incorporate your fueling, because the distance is not always going to be consistent. Saying it's every 5K is not going to be the same depending on what your rate of perceived exertion is that day. So during your runs, start maybe every 35, 40 minutes practicing, and you're going to see what works for you. You're going to know, well, you know what, that really helped me during my run, or that didn't help at all, I felt terrible. If you're going to make note of what felt good and what didn't. If it feels good, you keep it in that, in your rotation. If it didn't, give it to someone else. Let them try it out. It's like, that's a good thing we do at practice as well. Sometimes we exchange gels to see, like, oh, what are you using? Here, try one of these. Here, try one of that. And you'll get a little more exposure, and you can ask people why they like it. I like the UCAN gels because they're not too thick and goopy, and they're not sugary. I have a sensitive stomach. I can't take a lot of sugar. So they're really light. They're easy to go down. I don't need water with it. But it took a lot of experimenting to get there. And it took from going from waffles, honey stinger waffles, to gel, just gummies or what have you. But it's like those, I realize, are too sugary and don't work with me when it's hotter. So start experimenting and look around and see what fellow runners at practices are using, and don't do what they do, but maybe that's the way that you narrow down the options.
Waffles, man, those were the best. I love those things. They're so good. That's one of my favorite post-run fuels of the whole time. I love those nice singer waffles. But again, everything has got their own place out there. And yeah, I mean, I would tell runners, if you're not sure, buy one, go home, and just stand there and try it. If you can eat it without moving, that's a good sign that you can probably get it down while you're running. If you can't get it down just standing in your living room or kitchen, probably not the best to try it on your next long run because you're having a hard time there. So again, anywhere from $2 to $3 is typically what those gels cost. Buy a few of them, give them a shot, figure out what works. But Glenn, again, it's always, it's a tough call. Sometimes people have a sensitive stomach. Natalie kind of touched on it. Sometimes if they have too much sugar or certain kinds of sugars, they will not work. There are so many other options. I mean, I know runners that buy maple syrup packets. There's a ton of real food. I remember one of the best marathon stories I saw a guy running with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich pinned to the back of his shirt. I don't know if the sandwich made it. I'm still kind of curious to find out today if it did. But if I have a sensitive stomach, what are some alternate suggestions than just some of those, gels that can be high in sugar, maybe have caffeine and other yummy things in them?
Well, let me first begin by saying, we keep saying the word gel. So one of the first things that you might want to consider is the different types of energy supplements rather than gels. So it might be the jelly bean types, the sports beans. It might be the blocks that work better for you. It might be the Science and Sport, which is a combination of water with the energy already materials and electrolytes built into them. So, look amongst that plethora of items out there. So if you're having trouble with gels, maybe just putting a block in your mouth and sucking on it slowly and doing a more gradual ingestion will work versus just taking it. One, I know it's the next line, but it goes to this when you have a sensitive stomach, is one mistake is people are not washing it down with enough water. And then you're just getting this glob in your stomach and you feel like crap, and no pun intended, after a while, you just use the same word. So, you might try all those and still nothing works. I've seen them people just have to go on saltines. You find plain items that will work for you. Very interesting, and I'm going to end on this, is I was reading an article on this exact topic, probably about 6 months or so, and it was talking about that as much as we train our bodies, we can train our guts. Now, I have never worked with an athlete, but I found that very interesting. So don't despair. We may not have time. I'm talking about within the training cycle if you find nothing. But if that article is true, realize maybe stick to the thing that was the least irritating to you. And eventually that will become non-irritating if that article is correct, that you can train the gut over time.
Use that theory with my wife to be less irritating with her. It's not quite fully fleshed out yet, folks. Hopefully one day my wife will say I'm less irritating, but I'm doing the best I can to be less irritating with her. But yeah, it's so true, Glenn. I mean, you have to experiment and touching on, taking down water, what may work. Because those are the mistakes, Ro. I mean, and we hear about that. I mean, I remember talking to a runner, I think it was last marathon season, like, I can't take anything. My stomach is so sensitive. Anything I put in it, I'm going to throw it back up again. What am I supposed to do? But what are, I mean, you call them mistakes or, missteps or, hurdles that you're going to get in kind of this space, whether it be before the run, during the run. It is a lot of trial and error, but, what are some things that runners need to be aware of to maybe find some success as they go through this?
Well, one of the things we always say is nothing new on race day, and that's a real thing.
Yeah.
And that is a common mistake that happens, that you'll hear runners go, I'm just going to use whatever gel's on the course. Well, have you tried it? No. Big mistake, because you may find after you take that gel that, as Glenn was alluding to, that porta potty is calling. But that also goes for race week. If there's something you haven't really tried, maybe the week of the race is not the time to try it. And I can give a personal example. There was a wonderful, very hot half that we had in May 2 years ago. And everybody knew it was going to be hot. So everybody's pre-hydrating. And I said, I'm going to try on race week one of those super hydrators, which happened to have stevia in it. And I found out on race day that stevia doesn't work for me after drinking it for a full week. And so that was a fun race for me. So, common mistakes, definitely. like if you don't have time to dress rehearsal it, just put it to the side and, you know, try it after the race. And then obviously, like, if you didn't find anything that worked, you know, and I would never, you know, I used to run without, and then I found that was, you know, a really terrible idea around mile 7 or 8, that my tank was empty. So yeah, like if when you're, you know, going home and sitting down with your packs of goos and gels and blocks, and nothing's working for you, maybe just try some food. Maybe it's pretzels. I've been known to pull out some pretzels in the middle of a marathon while I'm running. So, yeah, I would definitely say dress rehearse pretty much everything and not week of the race or day of.
Short runners, there's no right or wrong answers here. It's really what's going to work for you. Glenn touched on it, and I've talked to one of our coaches in group training, Alba. She's a licensed dietitian. Training your gut is a real thing, especially if you're doing marathons, half marathons, especially. You can be part of the marathons. You're going to be on your feet for longer. Training your gut is so crucial because if you cannot get food down, as Rosie told, you only have enough onboard fuel for a certain amount of time. And most of us on this call, I mean, if you can run under 90 minutes, call me. Let's talk. Love to have some information, some chats with you. I personally cannot run under an hour and a half of my half marathons, even in my best days. So I knew I had to get some more onboard fuel when I get out there. So there's no right or wrong. Test it out. This is what this first part of your training is for. It is that trial and error. But I know we have some pre-submitted questions. Ashley, I don't know if we ready to rock and roll with those.
We are ready and able.
Okay, Glenn, tossing this first one up to you. We have the ever popular, never disappointing, always enjoyable IT band flare up. Avoidable? I had it years ago. It's a pain in more ways than one, Glenn. But what can we do to try to avoid this fun piece, this fun injury we get every now and then?
Well, what's interesting was years and years and years ago, you know, and I go back there, as cavemen, we would take those big sticks and we would roll the IT band. And in the many years that have come since then, it has been shown, do not roll the IT band itself when you're irritating something that's already irritated. So now to answer your question, what's a good way to avoid it is to roll the areas around the IT band to keep it flexible, so that doesn't tighten up and cause. And another thing is it goes to training. You know, these injuries tend to happen when you're doing too much too soon, or overloading, becoming a weekend warrior, saying I missed, you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, so I'm going to make it all up by doing just Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. You know, little gremlins like these injuries crop up when we try to do too much or don't follow the plans. The plan isn't just that we sat there and just said, you know, what looks good on this day. There's method to the madness. And the biggest method is to get you to the starting line injury free. So the best ways to avoid is to follow a plan, make sure you get rest. Rest besides days off also includes getting sleep at night. Those things help on injury prevention. Making sure you're hydrated helps on injury prevention. People don't realize these things. And a lot of times to throw in the runner's knee, runner's knee is usually because of a muscle imbalance. So for those who go to the gym, try to focus on those weaker areas. That's it.
Love it, Glenn. It's spot on. Great information. And hopefully you can stay healthy out there. Because again, we always, when you hear us say over and over again, you want to get to the start line healthy. Okay, Natalie, what if I hurt myself and can't run anymore? I'm not sure if curl up in the fetal position and cry is an appropriate answer, but that's what I may do. I don't know. What do you think, Natalie? If I get hurt, can't run, what should I do?
Step one, don't panic. Breathe. Calm down. And now you're going to take a couple days off and you're going to see, does this pain go away or is it still hurting? If it's 2-3 days with no running and it's still hurting, you might want to go to your PT and have them assess and make sure that it's not an actual, doing damage sort of injury, that it's just something that's temporary and something that's from it's not an injury that's going to lead to something more dramatic or lead to something, bad. Once you have a professional assessment that it's something that it is safe to be on and that you don't have to stop altogether, you can do things like cross train. You can do things like ride a stationary bike or something. It's going to keep your cardiovascular up, and it's going to keep your turnover good without putting as much stress, as much pressure on the joints and on the muscles, what have you. But I would say the first thing is to take a breath, don't panic, rest it. We keep saying rest is important, rest it. Give it a couple of days. If it doesn't go away, consult a professional and then follow their advice as to how to ease back into the training. Chances are it's just you did a little bit too much too soon, and you'll feel better after a couple of days and be able to go back at it. But then ease your way back in. Don't go back in and think, oh, I missed something, I need to go hard. Ease your way back in. Maybe start with more biking than running and shorter runs as opposed to speed work or super long run. You'll be okay. You'll make it there.
It's so important. Yeah, I mean, I think we've heard before, it's better to be a little bit undertrained than overtrained. So definitely take care of yourselves out there. Okay, Ro, if my legs are tired, and we can look at the different ways. If my legs are tired, should I push myself to run? Or is maybe my body telling me to, think differently and have an extra day on the couch? Or, what's some good tips and advice here, for runners who, especially as they move through first timers, as their workload increases, what should they be watching out for?
Yeah, you are gonna be tired, and sometimes you have to just sit yourself down and say, you know what, body, you're right. I am tired. And and it's okay. Sorry, hang on one sec. They're taking my garbage. Sometimes you just have to honor what the body's telling you. So whenever we say listen to your body, that's a real thing, because sometimes you get up, you roll out of bed and you go like this and you go, oh my God, my legs. So maybe today should be a recovery day in terms of, or just an off day, nothing. Maybe you still want to do something. So maybe it is go to the gym or get on a stationary bike, maybe do a couple of, 10 minutes and see, am I tired and can I do something? But it's okay if you just wake up and say, today's not a running day. You can swap some stuff around. And especially when you're starting out, this is your first half, or maybe even just like your first, New York Roadrunner half, that it's a tough race. So it's okay to just swap things around and just say, today's not my day. You would rather show up to the race where you're on fresher legs than showing up and being, tired. That's my advice.
Very good stuff for sure. And I know we have another question here. I think I may have been asked actually in our Q&A, maybe the same runner had inquired about any tips to increase our speed. They're trying to PR. Rosie answered that in our Q&A form. I'll read what she wrote, and it's pretty accurate. So speed work each week can help you improve your speed. Speed work can be intervals or tempo work. If you're working with Run Coach, any runners out there, whether on this call or watching the recording, if your training plan has your speed work, you'll see like interval days will give you, a 6 by or 8 by a certain distance or a certain time, and maybe some tempo or threshold work. Those are your speed days. Connect with the coaches there to get more information and real guidance. Anybody who's not using that and has any questions, we'll use ever popular Team for Kids at nyr.org. Reach out so we can kind of ask you some questions specifically, because obviously when it comes to speed work, you want to make sure that we have some more information, because it can be a slippery slope. We can give you some advice, but if you don't always know exactly what you want to do or what you're trying to achieve, that can lead to the ever popular IT, tired legs, getting injured, other things, because there is a workload involved with the anaerobic part of our body and how we build that up. But we want to help you out where we can, so use those email addresses to send them over. But I'll open the floor to, do we have any, hey, Ashley, if you're there, do we have any more questions in the Q&A? Are we all good? Anything we're missing
Do
here?
not have any more questions in the Q&A. We are over time, so if you have if you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions that haven't been answered, we can stay on for a couple more minutes. We'll be happy to help, but thank you guys so much, as Ben mentioned, because he's trained so well and he's so smart and wise. Email us at teamforkids@myr.org, and we're happy to help. But thanks for joining us, and we'll hang out here for a few minutes and then have a great icy night.
I just know we love more emails. I know that's what it is, really. You want more emails.
Do
from us.
because I answer some of them a lot of time.
I think everybody's leaving us.
Okay,
What I said?
bye all.